Welcome to the Unstoppable Freedom Podcast. I'm Jimmy Page. The Unstoppable Freedom Alliance is activating a movement of millions of everyday Americans with a passion for freedom. And we're committed to creating the greatest possible future for America, not only for us, but for generations to come. And even though freedom is under attack everywhere in the world, there's good news. And there's a lot of good news. The country is mobilizing people to do something, to stand up, to defend our liberties. And we're seeing this happen all over the country. And today we are joined by someone who is doing just that. Our guest today is Christine Yeargin. But before we get started, let me introduce you to our audience so they can get to know you a little better. Christine is a Turning Point USA ambassador and pro-life movement advocate. She's the co-founder of Colorado for Life and the vice chair of Moms for Safe Neighborhoods. You're going to need to tell us a little bit about that. Christine also founded Be Their Village and works to connect women in unplanned pregnancies to resources in their area and uses the pro-life community she's built on social media to fill baby registries for women who reject abortion and choose life. And as a mom, she organizes activists and fights for liberties and freedoms in schools, against the indoctrination of our students, and in support of school choice for families. Christine is a woman of God, and you are truly going to enjoy this show. Christine, welcome to Unstoppable Freedom.
Thank you so much for having me, Jimmy. I appreciate it. You
bet. I'm glad we made this happen. First off, okay, it doesn't take long to figure out that you are an unstoppable force for God and for good. So I really do believe this is going to be a good time.
I think so too. I'm excited.
Okay. So first question, tell us why you are passionate about the pro-life movement. What got you involved in this from the beginning?
Okay, so here's my life story. I grew up in a Christian household. My family was pro-life, I guess you would say, but we never really talked about abortion. I knew abortion was wrong, but I didn't really know much about it. And when I got to college, I was kind of living for the world. And I knew Jesus, but I wasn't walking with him at the time. And kind of looking for, I guess, love, attention, validation in all of the wrong places. And I landed myself pregnant at age 20 when I was a student. And not to get too into the details, but I ended up taking Plan B, which was 2 pills at the time. And if you don't know anything about Plan B, it can be an abortifacient. It can prevent an egg and sperm from meeting, but it can also prevent a fertilized egg from implanting into the uterus. So if you believe that life begins at conception, then that would then be an abortion because you're preventing it from planting into the uterus. So I took Plan B. It was 2 pills. And I immediately felt confused and didn't know what I was doing. So I looked at the back of the box. There was an 800 number, called it, and the lady on the other end of the line told me that if I was already pregnant, I would be fine. She didn't really give me very many details. She wasn't a scientist or a doctor. She had no idea what she's talking about. So I took the other pill and threw it out the window because I didn't like the answer she gave me. It wasn't a satisfactory answer or one that seemed very educated. So I threw the other pill out and, I'm sitting there wondering, what if I am pregnant? Did I just cause my child? And remember, I'm a 20-year-old,
Oh, yeah.
You've got a lot of things.
You got a lot of things swirling around, a lot of emotions.
I'm thinking, if I am pregnant, did I cause my child to have a disability? Is he going to have one arm now? All these things are going through my head of what did I just do? But I kind of just decided, you're not pregnant. Don't worry about it. And next thing I know, I was. I took a few pregnancy tests. A few weeks later, my mom actually.
So when you got the first one back, were you like, I need to test this again?
Yeah. So my mom actually realized that I was pregnant before I did. I was sleeping in, and I usually didn't because I was a nanny. So I woke up early a lot. And so she came over to my apartment. She had a bunch of pregnancy tests in her arms. And I took one, and it was a really, really faint pink line. And I'm thinking it's probably wrong. So, and usually
maybe just a little bit pregnant.
Right. So maybe just a little. So I took another one. Turns out I was pregnant. My mom actually got pregnant with me at 20, and people told her to abort, and she didn't. She chose life. Obviously, I'm here, and I'm so grateful for it. So having her there with me when I found out was such a blessing. Of course, she was disappointed and upset, for all of the maternal reasons that you should be, but she was also there to support me and be with me in an emotional time. So I ended up telling my son's father a baby was not a choice that he was willing to make. He didn't think that parenting was in the future for him, especially at that time. And I told him, I have had some time to think about this. I'm going to keep the baby, regardless of what your involvement is going to be. And I didn't talk to him
real quick.
for a while.
Let me jump in there. That's
Sure.
a super courageous decision, right?
Thank you.
Because you have, I mean, you at that moment, you're not going to get help from this young man, and you're 20 and you're kind of on the front edge of the rest of your life. And now you've got this huge responsibility, and it's pretty courageous decision. And your mom went through a similar decision point is what you're saying?
Yes, she did. Her and my father ended up getting married after I was born. So they've been together ever since and have a beautiful marriage. But when I told my son's father, we didn't talk for a while after he told me that a baby wasn't an option. And then later when we talked, I don't know, it was maybe a couple months later, he called me, actually text messaged me and offered me $50,000 to have an abortion.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
How
did you react to that?
Well, I know this is a Christian show.
No.
So I told him to take it and shove it where the sun don't shine. And not so nice words.
Good for you. I think I would have expected you to do the same thing.
Yeah. I said, these are my morals and my values, and you're basically disrespecting that. And this is my son, regardless. I've heard his heartbeat, and whether you're involved or not, this is what I'm going to do. So I had him. His name is Noah, and he will be 14 next month, which is so hard to believe. And I always want to share my story like full circle, because when people hear my story, they think negative things about his dad, but his dad is now involved. He has him half of the time. We're not together, but has a beautiful relationship with our son. And the circumstances were uncertain for both of us. We were both scared. We were both young, and it just turned out so beautifully. I feel like God just, what was meant for evil turned into good. And now I get to use my story and tell the world about, choosing life, and his dad is involved. And so everything worked out great for my son, Noah. And it's just, I don't like telling the story without bringing it full circle, because I don't want to paint his dad in a negative light, because who we were 14 years ago is certainly not who we are today.
Well, and you can certainly understand, I think he's facing that situation from his perspective, and he's obviously at a stage of life where he wasn't expecting that type of situation. So you can respect it and understand it. But I love the end of the story, because first of all, it's important that your son Noah has a dad and someone that is investing in him in that way, and a great influence. And it just shows the power of God to get into the mess with us, get into those difficult times. Life is not perfect. Life is super challenging. And we make mistakes, and sometimes we have the consequences of those mistakes, and sometimes we're spared of those consequences. But when things happen like this, and you make a decision, which is a really courageous decision, to watch how God can turn all of those circumstances for good is an inspiring part of the story for us, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely turned out better than I could have ever imagined. I'm married today, and I have 2 little girls, and my son has his father. And, I remember nights that I would go to sleep literally crying and rubbing my belly. Sorry, I don't want to get emotional. I'm just saying that I would, because I didn't know if his dad would be involved, say that I'll love you enough for the both of us, which I know is not true. We always need both families. There's a reason God created the family unit and the nuclear family with the father and the mother. So I know I could never replace him or replace his father. And it's just so beautiful that all of those nights I spent crying, worrying that he might not have a dad. He does have his own father, and he has a stepdad who loves him just as much as if he were his own.
It's amazing. It is amazing. That's such a inspiring part of the story, for sure. And it is heartfelt, because, you do feel a sense of, am I going to be able to love this boy enough?
Yeah.
And of course you will. And God fills in all those gaps, but I love to see those types of prayers answered in unique ways like this one was.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of my story. And then from that, I always felt called to the pro-life movement. I really, really dragged my feet, because if you know anything about the pro-life movement, it is the most controversial of all movements that there are. I mean, you want to talk about other conservative values, taxes, whether or not the church should be open, the border, sometimes controversial. Typically the border is very controversial, but when it comes to the pro-life movement, it's tough. And there's a reason. So I dragged my feet. I did not want to get involved. And I felt like I should, but I just kept dragging my feet. And actually it's funny. I went to the launch of the Falkirk Center, which was something that Charlie Kirk put on with Liberty University. And that was kind of my first, I got invited, didn't even know what I was getting invited to. I just knew it had something to do with Charlie Kirk. And then from there, I realized if I don't speak up for my values and kind of just go there, then somebody else is going to go there and they're going to tell their side of things. And it's not going to be what we believe and the values that we hold so dear to ourselves. So I got really inspired from there and have been super vocal ever since. I was a mom blogger prior to that. So I had a little bit of an audience on social media and I just kept going, and I lost a lot of followers, and then I gained a lot of followers for being bold too. So
and that's always the part of it is there's always a price to pay when you take a stand for something you have deep convictions about. And so on the one hand, you are going to lose some people that are going to think you're crazy, or maybe they disagree with your opinion. But on the other side, you're going to gain a whole another group of people that are on that side, or that may be persuaded. I feel like a story like yours is super attractive. It gives people an entry point in a lot of different ways, depending upon what part of that story they jump into personally. And I think that the story of redemption in the end is a really positive story. And, that sometimes you don't know how the story is going to end, but you have to trust that it will end in a way that is best for you in the end. So, all right. So Charlie Kirk, the Falkirk Center, my son works for Charlie Kirk directly. And so that's obviously one of our big connect points. Super excited about Liberty University. We've had 4 kids, 2 have graduated from Liberty University. I've got a senior there now and a freshman daughter that's going to Liberty. So we're big fans of Liberty University, big fans of Charlie Kirk.
I am too. Both Liberty and Charlie do phenomenal work. Liberty is one of the only schools that I would ever consider sending my kids to, and actually paying for it because of the way we're seeing colleges go now. So I love what they do there. And I know Falkirk Center is now Freedom Center. They've kind of changed, but they're still doing great work too. And so is Charlie. So, and I love your son. He's absolutely phenomenal. You guys did a great job with him. So,
well, we had great material. Jake's a great young man. He's got his head on straight, and he's got great principles and values, and he works hard. We're pretty proud of him.
My husband actually says that he looks like JFK. He's like, wow, that's a really good looking guy.
All right. Maybe he's got a real career going here.
But yeah, from social media is kind of where Be There Village came from. I decided to just kind of just go there, just talk about what you believe. Other people, like you said, they'll drop off, but then people who believe what you believe will jump on board. And, I decided to start posting about my pro-life beliefs. And there was a woman who messaged me, and you don't really know what kind of difference you're making on social media if somebody doesn't tell you. You're posting and you're like, do people even care about this? Am I being controversial for no reason? Is this annoying people? But I had a woman message me. I think she was in Maine. She said, I've been following you for several years. I want you to know that I'm Christian and I'm pro-life, but I had an abortion appointment set up, and I prayed to God for help, and I opened my Instagram and saw a pro-life post you made, and I canceled that abortion appointment. So that
gives me chills. That gives me chills.
Yeah. And he just turned 1 and his name is Henry. And so that was kind of like God's way of saying, like, you're doing the right thing. Keep going, keep going.
But those messages come right when you need them a lot of times, like right when you're like really doubting, is this making a difference? And then boom.
Yeah. We ended up, because I spoke out, I lost a lot of friends, not just followers.
Wow.
And something that I was not prepared for was that my husband also lost friends.
Wow.
Because their wives were pretty extreme on the opposite side of the aisle and just didn't like the things that I was saying, which is fine. I'm fine if people have different opinions. I can be friends with you, but I think it was tougher for them to accept my views and be cordial to me. So it was definitely tough. And having them or having that message sent to me was like, okay, who cares if you lose friends? There's quite literally a baby on this earth now because of something as silly as a social media post. I mean, you think social media is silly and people hear Instagram or Facebook and they kind of roll their eyes. It's like, you don't know how much of a difference you can actually make on social media.
Yeah.
So I felt like, I was like, great. She chose life. She canceled her abortion appointment. And I feel like I need to do something else like that. What do I do now for her? So I asked my followers on social media, I put on my stories and said, hey, like, do you guys want to help me help her? And we do a baby registry and maybe like purchase some stuff for her and help her out, because finances were one of the reasons she scheduled her appointment to begin with. Her husband, they live with their parents. They already had a kid. He lost his job because of COVID at the very beginning. And so finances were an issue. And I was like, let's just like take a little bit of financial pressure off of them. And my followers loved it. We did a whole baby registry, like crib, car seat, stroller, all that stuff that you need. Oh, years worth of diapers and wipes. And all my followers were like, can we do this again? Can we do this again? So I started finding pregnancy resource centers in the area. And anytime they have a woman who is abortion minded and chooses life, especially if she's financially unstable, they contact me and we're like, hey, we need to do a baby registry. I throw one up and now they go so fast. Usually within 45 minutes, a baby registry is completely full. And I have women who get mad at me. Like, I wanted to give, can you add something else? And I'm like, there's going to be more women. As long as you guys want to help, we'll help. And it's so beautiful because people say the pro-life movement doesn't care. I'm like, no. Yeah. I've got the proof. Thank you.
And what a unique idea. Like, as soon as you said that, I thought that's a great idea, because financial resources are generally a big part of the equation. And if you can fill in that gap, especially, you forget about it as a parent, I know how expensive my kids have been. I think my daughter's a little more expensive than my son's. Typically time will tell in the end. Yeah. Time will tell in the end. She's worth it. But it's true. It's very expensive. It feels very expensive. But one of the things that I've realized as being a dad now for 27 years with my oldest son is that you never feel like you have enough resources, but the resources always show up.
Yeah.
And that's why it takes a community of people. It takes people like you to identify the need, see the need and meet it. Yeah. And so it's inspiring. We're going to give our listeners the ability to connect directly with you, and we'll add some fuel to that fire, hopefully.
Yeah, no, it's really awesome. And like I said, people say we don't care, but I have women who genuinely get upset when they miss a baby registry and they're like, dang it, I always miss them. Which is so awesome to see that they don't ever meet the woman. They don't ever, every now and then I like post a picture of her or the baby, but they don't get to meet them. They don't get a thank you other than maybe like a generic thank you to everybody on a note or something. They don't get a personalized phone call. They do it just because they care about these women. They're proud that they chose life. And it's so awesome to see. And it's such a slap in the face to the narrative that the left pushes and the pro-abortion movement pushes, because we do care. We're there for them along every step of the way. And I'm just one person that does just one thing. There are so many other organizations that do so many other things and offer resources to these women too.
Yeah, it is amazing. I have seen just the opposite in the pro-life movement, in the Christian community. I have found that people are absolutely generous, like above and beyond crazy generous. And what I love about that too is no one's forcing them to give. Yep. People are giving out of the generosity of their spirit. And that actually is the best kind of giving, right? The worst kind of giving is when someone takes something from you and gives it to someone else. That never really feels very good.
Calls it charity.
Yeah, right. Forced charity. It never feels really good. But when people see a need and they just jump in and do it, it really is inspiring. But like you said, there is a cost to this, right? When you take a stand for conviction, especially when it's biblical conviction, something that is a deeply held belief, you are going to get opposition. I think because it's so personal and so emotional, that's part of the reason why it does separate people. But let me ask you this. Let me shift gears just a little bit. A lot of times you'll hear the phrase, my body, my choice, right? And, truthfully, I believe in bodily autonomy. I believe that no one can force me to take medicine or undergo a medical procedure against my will, that our bodies are created by God and that we alone have a responsibility and authority to steward that. However, there's a nuance here, right? I mean, this decision you're making isn't just about your body. Help me understand how you explain this topic of my body, my choice, and why this doesn't exempt you to have an abortion.
Right. So this is kind of what there's a few different things that I say depending on the person when, if somebody's asking me a question or having a debate with me. First and foremost, the moment that the egg and sperm meet, an entirely unique DNA code is created that has never been created before and never will be created again. At that moment, it is decided whether the baby is a boy or a girl, what color eyes the baby's going to have, hair color, all of those things. It is not the woman's body, which is what a point I try to get across. If it were the woman's body, and this is a little graphic and intense here, she would be the one who was dismembered or poisoned or had a heart attack induced through abortion. She is not, which means it is somebody else's body. A woman does not have 20 fingers, 20 toes, 2 heartbeats. So it's not the woman's body. However, I do understand where the argument is coming from. And I think it's very important to try to relate to people, because in a debate or in a conversation, if you come at them from an aggressive tone and trying to get your point across, instead of saying, I really understand what you're saying, but here's what I believe. It's actually 2 bodies. It's 2 different DNA codes. And if that's the case, shouldn't that human be just and you have to put the baby on the same level as a woman. It's not the woman is more important than the baby or the baby's more important than the woman. They're both equally valuable and deserving of love and support. And going kind of back to what we were saying earlier, finances are a massive reason of why women choose abortion. 75% of abortions are because of financial reasons. Close to 75% of women say that they were pressured by someone else to have an abortion. And in all of these cases, none of that is pro-woman. So what a woman needs in these situations when she finds out that she's pregnant is love and support, and to know that she can do this. And if resources are what she needs, that's what we have. We can find them for her. We're happy to help her in any way. But the my body, my choice is something that we often hear. And it's typically from the same side who does not agree with bodily autonomy for other things.
Right.
So truly, it's just a euphemism, and it's something for them to kind of distance themselves from the reality of the baby and the reality of what pregnancy actually is, because they also use the same clump of cells argument, which we also know you and I are a clump of cells if we're going to get scientific in that way. Yeah,
it's true. It's funny because I saw your argument. I actually saw some posts that you made months and months ago. My wife turned me on to what you were doing because we've been big pro-life supporters, big pro-life believers. Once upon a time when we lived back on the East Coast, we did the March for Life there in DC. And it's an amazing thing when you actually show up to that, because you kind of see all angles of that. But it's inspiring, absolutely inspiring. But I felt like your argument that this is a unique human being, so therefore that's a different body, that's someone else's body, and the mother is uniquely positioned to be able to take care of and nurture that new life, so that it prospers and so that it has the future that it's entitled to.
Basically every argument that you'll hear from the other side is some sort of a euphemism and based in emotion. They really tug at the heartstrings, but you have to bring them back to facts and logic and science. And if they're religious and Christian, then obviously bring them back to biblical truth. But even if they're not religious, you can come at it from a scientific perspective, because science is on our side too.
Yeah. So, and one of the things that I felt like years and years ago that really helped in this movement was the onset of the sonogram. Because you could actually see I remember when we went in for the first time when my wife was pregnant with our oldest, Jimmy. And I remember when I saw the image for the first time on the screen, that was an absolute game changer for me. Do you feel, what role has that imaging played? So, because now we know a lot more than we might have known 30 years ago. I mean, we know a lot about the development of that little baby.
Right. Well, that's funny you bring this up, because I worked with an organization called Save the Storks for a little bit, helping promote them. And what they do is they have buses that have ultrasounds in them. Wow. And they're like a miniature little doctor's office in a big van or a big bus, and they go outside of abortion clinics and they have ultrasounds for women for free who would be willing to come in and see them, because 8 out of 10 women who see an ultrasound who are abortion minded choose life. And they choose life because the ultrasound shows the humanity of that baby. They say, there's my baby's heartbeat. The majority of abortions are at 8 weeks. And at 8 weeks, you can see little arms, legs, a head, the torso. Like, you can see all of that. People don't realize that at 8 weeks, it is not really just a clump of cells. I mean, scientifically speaking, maybe, but it is a visible little tiny baby human with arms and legs and a head. And that's what ultrasounds do. It brings the humanity to life for these women. And 8 out of 10 choose life. They cancel their abortion appointments, which is one reason that Planned Parenthood does not show you ultrasounds.
I mean, seriously, you're giving me statistics that I don't know, and that really actually inspire me to even, I think, get more involved in very specific ways. You said 75% of all those that want abortion cite a lack of financial resources as a key, common denominator. And now you just said 8 out of 10 that actually see the new life that's in them will make a decision against abortion and to keep that baby. I mean, those are remarkable statistics to me.
It is, which is the number one reason Planned Parenthood doesn't want you to see ultrasounds. Abby Johnson actually says that, and she worked at Planned Parenthood for 8 years, they only have ultrasounds to determine what type of abortion and how much to charge the woman. It's not to show the woman the humanity of the baby. It is not to show the woman for educational purposes. They actually don't want the woman to be educated, because it's not a good business plan when 8 out of 10 of your clients walk out the door.
Wow. You're blowing up my paradigm. And also you're helping me to help other people find very strategic ways to get engaged. Yeah. So this is, it's a real blessing. Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say something that would be amazing. I was just talking to a friend about this, is which we don't see it in comprehensive sex ed, because we know it's typically written by the pro-abortion movement anyway, is if ultrasounds were included in sex education. That would be something that, maybe the kids aren't pregnant at the time in school, but it's something educational to impact them to go through the rest of their life knowing that is a baby, that is a human, and kind of see the humanity, because they don't really dive into that anymore in sex education.
I mean, that would be incredibly educational. Now, I know we're more interested in indoctrination, but it would be pretty amazing if we went back to the educational piece. I'll bet you would have new moms to be, lining up to be someone that would go to schools and be able to show a sonogram of what's happening. I mean, that'd be magical. And I think you would get a totally different type of response. I think you could see it real time. And I'm sure there are moms out there that would line up to be part of that.
100%. I know if I was pregnant that I'd volunteer myself at any time, any day, happy to help. I just know that the other side would not promote that, because at the end of the day, even though it is factual and scientific, showing the development of a baby, it still promotes life and hurts their bottom line.
Right. Well, this is going to be a good battle line, I think, in the school system. There's a lot going on there. I think we've got some potential there. Let me ask you this. Why does being pro-life relate to the American promise, and specifically the concepts of freedom that are talked about in the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, this idea of we have certain unalienable rights, and among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Why does this movement fit so well into our founding principles and documents?
Well, you actually said it, and everything that you just said. The role of the government is to protect our rights. That's it. And the first of all of our rights is the right to life. Without the right to life, none of our other rights matter, not a single one. So without the right to life, what good is any other right?
Right.
If the government can't even protect the most vulnerable among us, what prevents us from being the next targeted victim group? That's the way I see it is.
And I feel like that's a cascading effect, isn't it? Like, if we don't value life, which clearly in many respects we don't, then we become a commodity. We become almost experimental. In fact, I mean,
we're seeing it today.
We're seeing some great experiments happening right now, but that's not this show, but maybe we'll go there. Okay. I've seen you holding signs at rallies and events, and I just want to point out a couple of those messages and have you comment on them. Okay. you held up a sign that said, I am, and it wasn't just you, there were other people there. I am the pro-life generation. What does that mean? And are you encouraged by that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually a phrase that Students for Life came up with, which is a phenomenal organization for any parents who may be listening, get their students involved in Students for Life. They help promote a culture of life on campuses and educate people, and they're great. And so that's a phrase they came up with. And essentially it just embodies everything we are. We are the generation that is working to abolish Roe. And we're actually seeing it right now that our generation may see the end of Roe. We had the Dobbs case that just happened December 1st, I believe, was the oral arguments. I was in DC for that, which was great. And it's our generation that's going to see the end of Roe. We're confident that we can abolish it, and we're confident that we can take it back to a state level and do work in our states to do the same.
Wouldn't it be amazing, because obviously we agree that there's no constitutional right to end a life.
Correct.
There's no constitutionally protected right to an abortion.
Right.
And therefore, if it gets overturned, then it does go back to the states, right? Like you said, it goes back to the states, which is where that kind of decision belongs. And then now it's at the local level. So now instead of having this nationally imposed law, now it goes back to the local level. And then, you know what? We decide in our local communities what is best, what we value in our local communities, and what we're going to promote.
Right. We, and that's kind of what it is. I would try to tell people, like, look, even if Roe is overturned, that is not the end of the pro-life movement. It's just a new beginning. We have a new fight. It's not going to be on a federal level anymore. It's going to be on a local level. And that's where we really need to get involved, get our churches involved, get our communities involved, get our families and our schools. If you have a school that is maybe like-minded, and you can put a group like Students for Life together, get everybody involved to work in your communities, to make your communities pro-life communities. A lot of states, I believe I forget the actual number. I was good with statistics before, but I want to say it's like 26 states will have pro-life laws if Roe is overturned. I know a lot of states are pro-abortion, mine included. Colorado allows abortion for any reason at any time. You can choose that. You can say that you wanted a girl instead of a boy and have an abortion at 9 months if you want.
Is that right?
Yes.
I'm right up the street from you in Colorado, and I didn't know that.
Yep. There's actually a late-term abortionist in Boulder. His name is Warren Hearn. And I know they had a woman come in who was pregnant with twins, a wealthy couple, and decided they only wanted one. So they aborted both, second trimester. So it definitely happens. People say, no, it's only for medical reasons. That's actually not the case. It's usually for reasons of convenience. It's the same as it is for earlier abortions as well. So it's really devastating for the blue states because they're going to go even harder. However, it's phenomenal for all of the states that are pro-life because some of them have trigger laws, which I didn't even know was a thing until recently. And I'm probably going to be explaining it wrong, but it was something that, like, if Roe is overturned, a few states have trigger laws where a pro-life law automatically goes into place.
Wow.
Which I didn't even know that there was such a thing as a trigger law or trigger legislation. I'm probably totally butchering it, so I'm going to stop on that part.
Well, but
look it
I
up.
think, yeah. We'll get that. We'll get that in the show notes. But I think one of the things you're saying is this goes to the local level, right? And I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm okay with that because we do choose the communities that we live in. And look, there's so many battlegrounds right now that we just want the federal government out of it. We don't think they have anything to do with it. Let's talk about it at the local level. And then I think you win this argument based upon neighbor to neighbor relationships. It's like, hey, let's have a real conversation about this. Let's take some of the emotion out of it. Let's take some of the politics out of it, because this really shouldn't be a political issue, although everything seems to be made into a political issue. Yeah. This is really an issue of principles. Yeah. And so I think it's best at the local level, and let's hope that happens.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'm confident it will.
Yeah, I hope so. We're close. I know. Okay. Another one of the messages that I saw at some of the rallies you've attended and a bunch of people around you is I vote pro-life first.
Right.
I vote pro-life first. Tell me that. Tell me what that means to you.
So I have many issues that I'm passionate about when it comes to why I vote, who I vote for, what policies I like, many. Yep. But the first issue, and most important issue to me is the pro-life issue. If the government cannot, like I said before, if the government cannot even protect the right to life, what good is the government anyway? I mean, they're not going to protect me. We're seeing that today. And so this pains me to say, but even if it was somebody from the left who was really pro-life, which there are a couple of people, there's a woman who's a state senator in Louisiana. I know somebody who just got elected to city council. There are multiple people that I know who are very liberal and pro-life. If it came down to somebody on the right who was pro-choice and somebody on the left who was pro-life, I would vote for somebody on the left who is pro-life. It hurts my heart for some of the other policies, but the pro-life movement is the most important to me, and protecting the right to life, and the fact that 2,363 babies die at the hands of abortion every single day is something that's not okay.
Yeah. I love that. And I think people do vote on issues, right? And I think the most impassioned way to vote is to vote on your conviction. You know, what are the parts of my life? What are the things that I believe that are very closely held beliefs that inform the way I want my leaders to vote and the decisions I want them to make? And then I think it's admirable. It's noble. And, you know, I think I have a very short list of issues that I will vote on, very similar probably to yours. And we make our decisions that way as well. And one of the things we're trying to do is take politics out of this, is put the principles on the table and decide what principles you agree with. You know, do you agree with big government or small government? Do you agree with, what are the issues? Do you agree with the nuclear family or dissolving the nuclear family? Do you agree with being pro-life or pro-choice, and on it goes. So, okay, let me ask you another question. Obviously you're involved in a lot of rallies, and as are we, and I think there is impact of showing up on a local basis. What kind of impact do you think that these rallies have on the way people see the issue? Why is it important to show up in numbers?
Multiple reasons. I think for me, the very first March for Life I ever went to, I realized I was not alone. I have always felt, especially in Colorado, where it is a very, very pro-abortion state, very left-leaning, I've always kind of felt like I was like drowning in a sea of blue, and that I was kind of alone. My in-laws are also very left-leaning. So when I showed up at the March for Life and I saw how beautiful and happy everyone looked, everyone was having a great time. They weren't angry like you see at the Women's March. There were hundreds of thousands. I think they say maybe 200,000 people. I realized I'm not alone. And speaking up is so important. And I have all of these people, even if I don't know these people, in my mind, I've got all these people behind me backing me, even if I have no idea who they are. And I just want to high five everybody.
We're all friends.
We're all on the same team. We're all a family fighting for the same things. And it's the only movement that is truly fighting for somebody who cannot speak for themselves. Every other movement that you see, people can speak for themselves. People can fight for themselves. The vulnerable babies in the womb cannot. They don't have a voice. So I think for me, the rallies are so important to see that I'm not alone. Now, I'm a crazy person, and I've also gone to rallies on the other side of the aisle as well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I went to the Women's March in Denver.
Come on, you got to tell me, in Denver, no less. I mean, tell me when the next one is. I'll come. Can guys come to the Women's March? I mean, that's the question.
They had tons of guys there, very pro-abortion guys who actually were attacking me.
Wow. Okay.
Or very verbally, I should say. Nobody actually laid a hand on me, although there were some threatening things said. But
so how did they know? Did you show up with signs? I mean, what did you do? I'm shocked by that now.
I know. So we went actually with the Students for Life group. There were supposed to be a bunch of students who came with us. And I don't know if they showed up and just said, oh my gosh, these people are crazy, we're not going to go, and they just left, or if they just couldn't figure out where we were. So there only ended up being 5 of us there.
Oh boy.
At the Denver Women's March in October.
Were you treated well? You were treated with respect and kindness?
No. It was, well, we thought it was a march. First off, we thought there was a rally. They had their speakers and they marched and they dispersed. There was no march afterward. For whatever reason, Denver was the only spot in the country that didn't have a march. It was just the rally. So once the speakers finished and they saw us pro-lifers there, which we were getting hassled the whole time we were there, just holding signs. They didn't enjoy us being there. They tried to block our signs, steal our signs, cover one of us had a megaphone. That one was me.
I'm surprised by that again.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I didn't want the megaphone. One of the people who usually is on the megaphone was pregnant, and she's like, will you do it since I'm pregnant? So I took over, and I don't know. It was like I blacked out and just nothing fazed me anymore. But they didn't disperse. They didn't go on a march. So they all surrounded us. I have pictures that like the Denver Post took. They didn't mention us. Very, very minimal did they mention us, but there were thousands of people surrounding us.
Oh my gosh.
Probably 2,500 people, maybe.
Oh my gosh.
It was a lot. And they were screaming at us. They were barking at us. They ended up threatening the pregnant woman. They said, do you want her baby to die? Why are you here? It's not safe for her. And I'm thinking, it's a women's march. Why should a woman not be allowed to be here? And if you guys are so confident in your beliefs of being pro-choice, why do 5 pro-life women intimidate you?
Wow.
And I asked multiple people, would you like to have a conversation with me on the megaphone for everybody to hear? We'll just talk. Nobody took me up on that offer. Surprise, surprise. And then when they did kind of threaten the pregnant woman we were with, we ended up leaving. But we were there for a good couple of hours. And
did you have any protection? I mean, were there police there that were standing between you all? I mean, that's a pretty intimidating situation. I could just imagine if my wife was in there or my daughter was in there, that would make me uncomfortable.
Yeah. My husband said, I'm not allowed to go again.
He's
and
a
I
good
said,
man.
No, I'll go again. You'll just come with me.
Yeah, exactly.
So there was an officer that tried to get us to leave. She basically said, protesters are on the other side of the street. You guys go over there. And I said, no, we have a right to be here just as much as they do. It's a women's march. We are women. We're allowed to be here. They just don't like what we have to say. We're not hurting anybody. We're not doing anything. We're just holding signs. That's it. So she kind of gave up and she stood with us for a little bit. But basically was kind of like, you guys made your bed. Now you got to sleep in it. And when I say people were screaming at us, I had a woman screaming at the top of her lungs, this far from my ear. People were barking. People were throwing things, stealing our things. I actually posted something on my social media. It was pretty intense.
Yeah.
And so we ended up leaving, and the protection we had leaving was actually 2 people who were pro-choice. They reminded me of like rainbow versions of Antifa. They had the umbrella for weapons a little bit.
Wow.
But they were so concerned for our safety that they escorted us to our cars or closer to our cars because they were on the opposite side of the argument when it came to this. And they actually debated us a little bit, but they said, we don't think that you're going to make it to your car. They're going to follow you the whole way there. We're going to walk you to your car, which was super awesome that they can kind of put aside our differences and put the humanity of us and our safety first over their beliefs.
I mean, the irony of, it's pretty impressive that 2 of the crowd of 2,500 that surrounded you were courageous enough to do that. And thank God they did, right? Thank God. But the irony that people are willing to be this contentious with humanity when they're not kind to humanity that doesn't have the voice. It's just the ironies in this are amazing to me.
Well, you know what I noticed? We had a conversation with a few people. And when we got deep into conversation, a lot of times an older person would say, don't talk to them. Don't talk to them. Almost like they didn't want the people we were talking to be educated or to learn anything new. But from the people that we did talk to, the majority of them, especially the younger girls, had no idea how abortion was performed, what it actually was, how far the baby is developed at the time most of abortions happen. They genuinely believe it's just a clump of cells that just disappears. They don't know what they're talking about or what they're even fighting for. A lot of them are just there because it's trendy. And I think that's why, kind of going back to the educational piece and going back to ultrasounds and teaching our children the education of how a baby is developed, what abortion is when it's obviously age appropriate to teach them that. It's so important for them to know because so many people don't know. And I think a lot of people jump on the pro-choice movement on that train because it is a trendy thing to do right now. All the celebrities are pro-choice and all the musicians are pro-choice and AOC is parroting pro-choice talking points. I think that they think that's what's cool and hip and trendy. So that's what they do. And they don't know what it is.
Wow. That's enlightening to me too. And I think we do have an opportunity with the education of this. Yeah. I think too, it's really interesting to me that the pro-life movement is pro-woman.
Yeah.
And it's hard to make an argument against that. Why do you think Why do you believe that the pro-life movement is indeed pro-woman?
So what I said before, the majority of women who have abortions say that they were pressured by someone else, whether that was maybe a parent, a boyfriend, a husband, a fling that they were having an affair with. The majority of women have said they felt some sort of pressure. I think it's 73% is the number from somebody else. There is nothing that is pro-woman about somebody else making that decision for you. There's nothing that is pro-woman about a man offering a woman $50,000 to have an abortion, which is not uncommon, by the way. I don't know if you saw in the news, maybe not, because it's a pop culture thing, and I don't even pay attention to pop culture, but Tristan Thompson, who was dating Khloe Kardashian, just offered her $75,000, or not, didn't offer Khloe, offered a girl that he got pregnant while he was dating Khloe, $75,000 to get rid of the baby. She did not. She chose life, thank goodness. But it's not an uncommon thing that we see people try to pay them off, whether it's a celebrity or an athlete like Tristan or a musician or a politician, or we see these people pressuring women to make a decision they don't want to make. And then outside of that, financial reasons, lack of housing, lack of maybe a car or a job, all of those reasons. Abortion is a symptom because of those reasons. You know, if I'm having an abortion because I can't afford a house, I'm not having an abortion because I want to. I'm having an abortion because of something else. That it's the most pro-woman thing to do is to support a woman in what her actual need is, instead of leaving her backed into a corner she doesn't want to be in anyway and saying, hey, have the abortion and go back to whatever, unfortunate circumstance you were in to begin with. The most pro-woman thing to do is say, I'm here for you. How can I support you? How can I love you? What resources do you need? I have a list of them. I can help you. I have connections. I'll contact somebody. That's the most pro-woman thing, to stand by her and let her know that she's not alone.
That's amazing. It's funny. You were talking about, this is all cultural pressure, right?
Yeah.
It's pressure from another person that's involved, maybe pressure from someone else's parents, maybe pressure from your own parents. I mean, there's so much pressure that a young lady could be feeling in those circumstances. And that's the opposite of empowered, right? If you're living in fear, you're being pressured, you're not empowered. And what you're trying to say is, no, we're empowering our young women. We're empowered, even in the midst of a mistake, if you want to call that situation a mistake or an unfortunate situation. We want our young ladies to be empowered to make decisions that aren't based upon what they don't have, these resources, or based upon someone else pressuring them. But instead, we want them to make these bold, courageous decisions, follow their heart, know what they're doing, be educated in these decisions. And, that's what we're fighting for. And I think too, from a culture perspective, part of our mission is to revitalize the culture. I originally, kind of came from the perspective of, hey, we want to win the culture war. Right. But I always feel like a war means there's winners and losers. And in the end, we want to come together and create a culture that is civil, that respects each other's opinions, even if they're diametrically opposed to each other. We want to revitalize that culture so we can begin to have a civil discourse again, disagree without demonizing people, and really bring people together and be okay that we don't see it the same way. I'm okay with that. There's a lot of reasons that we're not going to see things the same way, but it shouldn't be because we're angry and shouting and emotional and demonizing people. It should be because we review the situation and the facts, and then we can come to our own conclusions.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's a great point. What fun is a world and if everybody agrees on everything. Obviously everybody should agree on the pro-life issue because that's a big one.
Seems like a key one we should agree on.
Correct. I don't agree with my husband on 100% of the issues. On 100% of anything.
He's probably right though, right? I mean, most of the time.
I'm always right.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's what I meant.
Even when I'm wrong, I'm right.
Yeah, exactly. I understand.
But truly, I don't even agree with my husband 100% of the time on, everyday issues. So how can we expect to please everybody in the world and always agree with each other? And it's okay if we disagree. Everybody has different backgrounds and walks of life that they come from, maybe different religions, maybe a lack of religion. And that's okay for people to have different opinions. In fact, I encourage it because what good is diversity without diversity of thought?
That's right.
You need to be able to accept different opinions and just, go
it's
about
funny.
our way.
That's true. And it's funny because I do think diversity can be a strength, right?
Yeah.
Diversity it has the potential to be a real strength. I also think that moral courage is a strength. I think that, there's a lot of things that make us special in this country. I think the pursuit of excellence, I think excellence is a strategic advantage for our country, can be. And I think that's what we're after, right? Is we're after people that are morally excellent, that are pursuing the moral good, the greater good. And I think by pursuing that, I think we make better decisions overall.
No, 100%. I think, well, you use the word greater good, and I think I've heard that one too many times.
I probably, yeah. Ooh. And it's used like a club, unfortunately, in a lot of situations. Yeah.
It is. I know what you mean, though.
Yeah.
Truly, if we're doing what's best for people and making decisions based on what is morally good, I think that that's important. But that also comes back to biblical values, because where does a moral compass even come from without the Bible? Right. Even those who aren't religious, say you shouldn't kill people, you shouldn't lie, you shouldn't steal. And they don't realize that those are biblical values. So I think a lot of it is bringing the country back to a biblical foundation.
I think so too. And I think, you start to live with wisdom, when now all of a sudden you start to see things through a different lens, and you can live with wisdom. And I think that's the best. I know that the greater good is being thrown around like a grenade right now around. I
didn't mean to throw you under the bus there.
Oh, yeah. Well, geez, I'm going to edit this out. This is so gone. Because I believe in individual freedom, and right. I also believe it's misused. I think it's tremendously misused to say that my behavior has to be for your benefit. And a lot of times what I'm being asked to do has no bearing on what someone else is going to experience or the choice that they can make. So we're pretty staunchly in the camp of individual freedoms, making choices based upon the benefits, the risks, the alternatives. Yeah. So maybe we'll have you on for that conversation. That might be fun too. All right. Let me ask you this. I know you're super bold in voicing your convictions. And I think when people act out of conviction, it is incredibly winsome. It's attractive, because when someone is taking what I would consider a moral high ground at great personal sacrifice, it's very attractive, and it makes me lean in and wonder why. What do you believe that with such convincing, belief? Why do you believe it? Do you feel like this younger generation, I know you said that a lot of times it's popular to kind of be pro-choice. Do you feel like this younger generation coming up, though, is attracted to someone who has a bold conviction in this area?
I do. I think because we're seeing more people speak up, especially with the climate that we've had in our country the last couple of years. Celebrities are speaking up. Your everyday neighbor that you had no idea where they stood politically 2 years ago, where they stand now. I think more and more people are starting to speak up, and it is becoming the thing. And I think a lot of people, especially what is trendy right now, is to fight for victims, whether people think that is minorities with BLM or the border, people coming across the border looking for better opportunities. People are wanting to be bold and stand up for people, or stand up for victims, stand up for minorities, stand up for those who are oppressed. We're seeing a lot of that. Unfortunately, they don't believe babies are oppressed because they don't know that they are actually babies in the womb, and they don't know what abortion actually is. I think if we had that education, we'd see a lot more people stand up for life as well. And we are seeing more people stand up for life as they learn what it is. We see more people joining Students for Life clubs. We see more people getting involved in the pro-life movement. I see young people every single day being bold, willing to lose friends on their college campuses, wanting to have speakers like me come to their campuses. I think it is definitely cool to stand up for anyone who's oppressed right now. I'm seeing a lot of that among younger people. I think we just need to show them and educate them that we are oppressing babies. And a lot of people want to be a feminist as well. And having an abortion is not freedom or healthcare or any of the things or euphemisms they say. Having an abortion is oppressive to women, because if I have to buy my freedom through the sacrificing my child, If I have to buy my career or my goals through the blood of my children, then that's not freedom. That's just me redistributing oppression onto somebody else.
Yeah.
So I think if we could get that point across to these young people, I think this is an issue that they would stand up for as well. But I do think it's very trendy to stand up and be bold for what you believe. I see it on social media every single day, especially with young people.
Yeah. I do think, okay, you mentioned college campus, so I'm going to go there. So I happen to know the college campus is what, generally speaking, outside of Liberty University and maybe Grand Canyon and a handful of others, is very anti-free speech, anti-conservative speech, and it's pretty toxic. And so bringing in a speaker like you who has an opinion that's not going to be shared typically by the leaders of those universities, what happens when you go to campus? What happens? Do you speak in an auditorium? Do you speak out? Do they let you in an auditorium? What happens?
Usually right now, what we're seeing is people throwing away the posters so that other people can't find out about it. Like a group, whether it's maybe Turning Point or Students for Life or for, whatever, all these different organizations that are on college campuses can bring people to come speak. And we see a lot of people will post the posters all over campus to say, hey, so-and-so is coming, whether I'm on a panel or speaking by myself. And people who disagree with our point of view will tear down the posters and throw them away so nobody finds out about them. Wow. We also have had people try to really enforce like mask mandates, saying that we have to speak with a mask on, even though they have not made other speakers do that, just to kind of discourage us from coming, because they know that oftentimes people on our side are pro individual choices. So we've seen that. We have seen people show up to counter protest. We've kind of seen a little bit of everything.
Have you felt threatened on a college campus?
Do what?
Have you felt threatened on a college campus?
Personally, no. I felt more threatened at the Women's March.
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
And very sad to say that, a woman going to a Women's March is not safe. I know people who have felt threatened on a college campus and who have been assaulted or had other issues, things stolen, stuff like that. But personally, I have not. I don't doubt that the day is coming when that happens, though.
Yeah. Wow. It's amazing. I really do admire your courage. I'm super thankful you're in the space. I learned a lot today. What are some of the best ways that everyday American citizens can get involved? You've mentioned a few throughout, but to really make a difference, to protect freedoms in their local community, to really step into this pro-life space, what are some things that they can do on a practical, hey, I'm taking action basis?
So there's a lot of things. First and foremost, what I say is, like, the women are the most important in this situation. So knowing resources when a woman comes to you, because you never know who or when that's going to be. You might meet somebody in an elevator. It might be your neighbor. It might be your child. It might be a sister. It could be anybody. You could meet anybody at any time that says, hey, I just found out I'm pregnant. I don't know what to do. So when you know those resources and have them on hand and say, okay, I know of a pregnancy resource center, or I know of this place that provides housing if you need housing, having them on hand is really important, so that when you have that conversation, you don't leave the conversation empty-handed. You don't leave, or the woman doesn't leave not having any resources to choose from. And then I also think it's very important for our elected officials who give us these pro-life promises, hold them accountable, get involved with them, help them. I think people don't know this. You can help them write pro-life legislation. You can help them fight for things. You can jump on campaigns for people who are pro-life and make sure they keep their promises when they get in office if they win. You can get involved with, Students for Life. I mentioned that before. Live Action does a lot of really great work on educating
Love Live
people.
Action.
Yeah, they're phenomenal. But I think it's really, really important to do all of those things. You also have pregnancy resource centers you can volunteer at. You can do diaper drives. You can get your church involved. A lot of times we see churches kind of don't want to touch this issue because it is divisive. And especially coming from a male perspective for pastors, is a lot of times they don't necessarily know how to talk about it or don't want to offend somebody in the congregation maybe. So talking to your pastor and helping him realize this is something he should be talking about, and getting your church involved as a community and rallying around these women, because I know a lot of times churches say we don't want to talk about it too much because we don't want to condone, maybe premarital sex, but unmarried women are not the only people who get pregnant and have abortions. A lot of times married women do it as well. And not only that, but once the baby is here, the premarital sex has already happened.
Right.
You don't go and fix that with another sin. So I think getting your churches involved is a huge one. There's so many different ways, and not every single way is for every single person. Sometimes you have to kind of dabble in a few different ways to figure out where you fit in, what you enjoy the most. Some people enjoy doing diaper drives, and some people enjoy the political side. Some people enjoy volunteering to help with the ultrasounds and pregnancy resource centers. So you really just have to kind of dive in and find out
I love that.
What's your knack?
Do you have, first of all, you just listed 7 or 8 things, and I actually am taking notes because it's important to me. Why don't we work together on a resource, and we'll put it on each other's websites, and we'll get the word out here? Because what I've found is, if I have information readily available, like, hey, what are the top 5 things that I could do to assist the pro-life movement? What can I do? And I have them with a couple of instructions. I am 10 times more likely to do something about it if I've got that easy information. So I'm going to challenge you. You gotta help me put these resources together, right? And then we're going to get it out in a big way so that people can have those conversations in their neighborhoods, in their churches, and really make a difference. Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm happy to help in any way that I can. And if anybody listening to this ever needs any help, or comes across a woman who needs help, I'm here for genuinely everything. This is my passion. This is my heart. Use and abuse me to whatever way you can for the pro-life movement, because this is what God put me on this earth for. What's the best? Amen to that. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you? Right now, social media is one of the biggest things. Christine Yeargin is my name, and that's my name on all platforms. Be There Village has its own Instagram page. I'm working on a website to get all of that up and going. It's kind of under construction right now. I'm also adding a merch line to it. So I'm kind of just reconstructing everything. So social media is the best way to get hold of me. And that's where I do the baby showers too. So that's what people love the most. Perfect. Well, listen, this has been a lot of fun. Tough topic, serious topic, really serious topic, but it's been really great. I think our audience is going to learn a lot, and I think it's going to go a long way to help people take action and really make a difference. So thank you for the investment of time. God bless you, and can't wait to see you again. Yeah. Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And tell Jake I said thanks. I will for sure. He'll be excited to see.